There's no doubt that every gardening season comes with its own set of challenges and speed bumps. Some we can overcome, others we're not so lucky. But we do learn something and then we move on. The best growers seem to learn from these missteps and hardships, vowing never to make the same mistake on a future crop. So today, I got 7 such mistakes that you may have made this year that we need to eliminate before going into next season. There's no doubt that gardening failures can be painful, but this is how we level up. This is how we get better at the craft. Despite unlimited berries, hundreds of garlic bulbs, forests of herbs, and pounds of peppers, I've made every single mistake on the list I have for you today. And probably more than once too. Overcoming and learning from your mistakes is great, but only if you apply it to the next set of crops. This wall of tomatoes here almost never happened because of mistake number 1 on our list, and that's starting or buying too many seedlings. Unless you have your garden plan down to the last square inch and your timeline all figured out for the year, going overboard with your seedlings in the winter and early spring can have negative effects. Ones that you don't even think about. Too many seedlings to properly care for can lead to subpar conditions as the space for them dwindles, resulting in poor stock to transfer out into the garden. That is, if they make it there at all. Needless to say, this one can become a huge waste of time and money. And as the walls close in with so many plants under our care, this leads us to our second mistake, which is poor timing. With so many seedlings to transfer out into the garden, it's easy to miss the proper growing window, especially for those with the finite seasons, such as those gardeners in the lower growing zones. Proper timing really is the key to a successful crop. You want the plants to be growing in their optimal window for your area. It's the only way to truly get reliable harvests. Direct seeding versus pre-started transplants can alter the timing of your plantings, so ensure that you're giving the plants the window they need to complete their entire life cycle. Each crop is different for each climate, for each zone, so going into next year's planting with a game plan is going to be essential. It's not meant to cause you anxiety, just be prepared. With so many plants and a finite amount of space, we might make another common mistake. And that's picking the wrong location for the crop. Too hot, too cold, too exposed, not enough sun, not enough water, poor drainage, poor soil, you name it. There's a laundry list of parameters for why our plants don't do well. By taking diligent notes of what plants do well and where every season, we can get a better idea of how to plant out our gardens. Normally, we have multiple spots to pick from. So, when you're trying to figure out a location to grow your garden, select areas with full sun, good drainage, easy access, and if need be, limited exposure for those lush plants such as herbs and your leafy greens. Speaking of that drainage parameter, this brings us to our 4th mistake to correct, and that's bad water management. Now this one always boils down to either too much or too little. Gardening would be super easy if there was a universal watering schedule and all we had to do was just water our plants every 2 to 3 days. Unfortunately, there's way too many variables to keep track of, and it doesn't quite work like that. As a whole though, there's no doubt that our summers are getting warmer, and now more than ever, our crops need proper moisture control to reach their full potential. That means we have to be smart with both the application and the conservation. Watering in the morning, watering more thoroughly but less often to build better root systems, and eliminating bare soil at every chance by diligent mulching. Just these 3 things alone are going to put us in the best position to be successful, regardless of what your weather is doing that year. Let's not skimp on this one for next year, as it really can affect the performance of our garden. Another one of those maintenance tasks that we often let slide is weeding. In a nutshell, weeds are competition for your plants, and if you want the biggest harvest possible, well, you gotta stay on top of them. We need to eliminate the effects that weeds have on the fight for resources, namely space, water, and nutrients. If we stay on top of them, it's easy and simple work. If we give them an inch though, weeds can literally take over. Don't let those weeds go to waste though. Check out this video here on how to use weeds to make your own organic fertilizer. Okay, back to planting. With a little more experience under our belts and a few crops in the bag, we now have a visual on how plants go from tiny saplings to monster tree type specimens like this row of tomatoes here. As such, we can fully appreciate now how much space adult plants actually take up. Improper spacing is an easy fault to commit because when we plant, and especially when we seed, everything is so tiny. There's so much empty space and it's so tempting. But the spacing rules are there for a reason. And if we're ever in doubt, the back of every seed package has the information we need to space our plants properly. Easy, but important stuff. And finally, our seventh and last mistake to learn from and not make next year is to never give up. I know at times it can feel bleak, disheartening, uphill, maybe even a little futile, but we have to persevere. Plants can most certainly turn it around within a life cycle, but even if not, bad crops don't ruin the soil for future plantings. Learn from the acute mistake and simply move on. Commit to the challenge, and when the rewards come, we'll be that much sweeter. Hey, we covered a lot here today. Let's go ahead and recap those main points so that we don't make these same mistakes next year. Whew. Gardening seasons come and go, and there's not much we can do to slow them down. But For those dedicated to the craft, they should get better and better. Hopefully, if you've made any of the 7 mistakes on this list, you can correct them in time for next year, and we can all get better and better at this. Hey, as always, happy growing, guys, and I'll see you soon.